Hi, this is Mary Kay. Today I am painting this columbine. It's the Western Columbine in the Sierra Nevada, and I took this picture last June. So I'd like to just tell you the names of these parts of the flower. So these parts here are the sepals. These here are the petals. The bottom part's called the blade and the top part's called the spur. It has 5 sepals and 5 petals. It has 5 pistils, and usually it has a 40, 35, some number of 5, multiple of 5 of the stamen down here. So the first thing I did was I took water-soluble graphite paper and I traced it onto my sheet of 140 arches, and then I took some Pebeo, which is this stuff, drawing gum, and I used my little brush to just do the little the stamen here. So in order to use the Pebeo with your good brushes, you need to put it in dilute shampoo first and wring it out, and then dip your brush into the Pebeo. I'm not doing the whole flower because I think it just takes too much Pebeo, too much time, and I don't like the starkness of it when it's done. I like to have a little bit of softness around all these parts of the flower, but here I do want to have those exactly where they are. In the picture, there's a stamen that goes this way. I just brought it down a little bit, so it's still wonky, but it's not as wonky as it is in the actual picture. So I'm going to start with my background, and I'm going to wet my paper, all the background. So I'm not going right up to the lines yet, just getting. Now here I can go right over it because you can go right over the Pebeo, right over the drawing gum. One of the reasons that we paint on a board is so that we can lift the paper up, and then when you lift it up in the light, you can see where the paper is shiny, where the water is. If you get a little bit of color on your paper from the board, don't worry about it. It always just kind of disappears. So now I'm going in with a little bit smaller brush and going a little closer to my lines. One of the things that you want to have in a composition, whether it's complex or simple, is overlap. You want things to be behind each other. Now I'm going to make a big puddle of green paint and go in and paint this background green, and I want it to be very loose. So the green that I'm going to make is dark green with burnt sienna. I'm going to really be happy if we squeeze out some fresh burnt sienna before we do this, so we don't have to spend so much time digging in your paint like I'm doing right now. And now into the Antwerp Blue. Same thing with the Antwerp Blue. We should put a little fresh out. So I'm just going to add Antwerp Blue into that Burnt Sienna puddle until I get the teal dark green color that I love. I'm almost there. That'll work. Now I'm going to make some lighter green. So I'm kind of getting my brush, getting that paint out as much as I can. Rinse out my brush. Now I'm going to use Antwerp Blue. There's still a little bit of Burnt Sienna in that. That's okay. And I'm going to go into my yellow and get a lighter green. Okay, now I'm going to just start painting these greens just loosely into the background. Anytime I have light green on this side of the flower, I need to have light green on this side of the flower. Whoops, that's what I don't want to do. Now you might think, well, if you had Pebeo on that, you could just paint right over it, and that's true, and that's something you can do if you have time. Because I can just go right over that part. Okay, getting there. I like having the dark green behind these reproductive parts of the flower here, because it'll really make them pop out. Is my hair getting in the way? And if I have that green on this side of the sepal, I need it on that side of the sepal. That's going to be yellow right in there. And this is here and here. Okay, good. So I'm just filling this in really as fast as I can. And then another part that I want to have be with a little bit darker green is around this pedicule, which is the stem that the flower holds on to. So if I have the dark green right there, and I have to have it on the other side of the petal. And on this side. See how I'm kind of being sloppy? It's not perfect. I actually like that. No, it's a painting, not a photograph. That dark is really nice in there, so I need to put a little bit more in here. So that's on both sides of that. Now we have a little bit right here that's in between. Okay, I'm just coming in and kind of carefully painting next to it. Okay, one thing I have to make sure is that I have my whole painting painted. Let's go up here. Get that up there. And then if I want to, you know, I could throw some salt onto this or just watch how the watermarks form because there's a lot of water. One thing I do see is that on this side, I just have that dark color really kind of mimicking that side, and this side, I don't really want that shape. So I'm just putting some other little lines in there. One thing that's happening right now is that it's granulating. Okay, I need to quit painting or I'm just going to make it worse and worse. So I want to do two things. One is that I want to sign my name. And I'm just going to write with my bamboo signer. I'm going to dig into the paper. And I write my name in cursive. Mary K. S. Jolly. And I put a C with a circle around it for copyright. All works on paper are copyrighted. And what I need to do now is patiently wait for this to dry a little bit more, because when the paper's damp and you scratch into it, the paint will flow back into the little scratches. It has to be wet, and it flows in the scratches and makes it dark, so you can see my name. So what I want to do with a credit card even is there's little hairs just coming off a bunch of little parts of this flower. So what I want to do is I want to make little white scratches, but right now it's too wet, so it's just making little dark scratches. When this is drier, I can go back in, and when I lift it up, it'll be dark. So what I'm going to do right now is move on to the flower part, because I don't want to slow down the video. I could go just dry this a little bit. And I'm also going to clean my yellow, because I'm going to go into it now with permanent rose and make the orange colors. To probably get better at editing these videos, but you guys can just skip ahead. So we have what we have at this point. Okay, I got almost all the blue out of that. Here, let me help. All right, here we go. So if I take permanent rose and Hansa Yellow Medium, I can make all those colors. And I made a video of how to make these color charts. So I'm just going to get going. I'm going to mix up some yellow with a little bit of pink and get this beautiful orange color. I'm going to start painting my sepals and blades. if this green was totally dry, I wouldn't get any of that little blending in there. Now, if you notice, this part right here is actually very light. So I'm just lifting up. So I rinse out my brush and I dry it. This is called a thirsty brush, and it'll just lift up the color. And I think it's actually, the sepals are a little bit more red. So if I just put more permanent rose in here, I'll get a more red color. Yeah, there we go. That's much better. And then over here, if I add just a lot of, I can rinse out my brush and just basically have kind of a dirty brush, I'll get that color. So the sepals are more red than the petals. So you just make it more red by adding more permanent rose. I really don't use a red anymore. I'm mixing all my reds with permanent rose and Hansa Yellow Medium. And it seems kind of weird, but they make the most beautiful colors. And now that well, many of us have printers, the printers all use magenta, which is permanent rose, cyan, which is very close to Antwerp, and yellow, which is very close to Hansa Yellow Medium. So there's, this one's kind of bleeding, and I don't know if I don't like it or not. I know I like when things happen in the watercolor. Oh, I see there's a very pale sepal back here. I'll just put that in. And there's a tiny little like green spot right there. I'll put that in later. Okay, so now I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try to go into the more yellow. So these parts of these, the petals here, are more yellow. These are called the blades. And then they go into more orange. And then the more even red. Okay, so we're going to go into the dark red now. Actually, the very tippy tops are white. Okay, and I forgot to put this one in. That one is kind of these colors here. This one's blurry in the photograph because of the focal point. So I'm just looking at the picture and looking at the colors and trying to match them. It's kind of just like putting together a little jigsaw puzzle. So this one goes here and this one goes here. Just going like that. Okay, now I'm going to make some darker red. All I did was just add permanent rose into that puddle and it came out almost perfect. The very tips of the spurs have the nectar pocket. And I do see that right here is just a little bit lighter. So if I take a thirsty brush and I just run it down, it'll lift up that color right there. I'm going to go to this one now. This is Let's see if this is getting dry enough to lift my little fur. Yeah, right in there I can get little white lines. Let's see if it'll work here. That's, okay, so we can put little pieces of fur. Has to be pretty dry to lift up and make white. You have to really watch when it gets to the, see, it's that one made a dark line, but this is dry enough to make a light white lines. I just think that's so fun. There are little, just little hairs off these things. Let's see if I can do it here. Where else do we have them? Coming right off of this even. Once it dries too much, you can't get the little white lines. And if it's not dry enough, you get the dark lines. So I just play with it a little bit, and I just try to put a few in, and it makes my eye know that there's a few hairs around. Okay, now I'm going to go back with my pencil brush, and I'm going to put in this one here, right here. I'm going to paint that one. That one is dark at the top. The very tippy top is white. Oops, I went over the edge. Like I said, I don't mind mistakes. And I'm painting kind of fast because it's a demonstration painting. Let's see if I can lift up this little bit of extra red over my green. Not really. I'm gonna, oh, that was better. Okay, take it. Now I made all those lines dark though. Okay, and then I have this, I guess this is a back one here, huh? Okay, same colors though. I'm going to darken it. So darken it means that I add more paint. I just go back into my squeezed out tubes and make the paint thicker. And now I can go back in up here. This one, I think I'm going to darken the outside of that one. This one. It turns yellow there. Okay. Anytime I have a lot of paint in my brush, but I have the right color, I just dip it in the water and touch my paper towel, and then I can go in and just add a little bit of tint to that. So, I think this is kind of, I think I've pretty much captured it. I'm going to put just the tiniest bit of yellow right at the tip of this red here that goes into the nectar bulb. And I'm going to leave the little tip of the nectar bulb white. Okay, and I think I can, this just needs to be so dry before I pull up the Pebeo, but I think I can do it. I'm going to go ahead and be brave. This is called a pickup. See if one of my things I don't do well enough is let the paper dry before I use my pickup. And then I smear. The wet paint onto the white paper. But I'm kind of getting away with it today. Yay. Oh, papers just moved on me. There's one here. Can I get away with that one? Not really, not yet. Yeah, see. Ah! Okay. I need to use a blow dryer this morning. It's foggy out, and so the air's kind of damp, not drying very fast. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start putting in the stamen, and I'm gonna go to my little bitty brush to do the pistils. These things hanging down with little bitty are the pistils. That is the female part of the plant that connects up to the ovaries. See, you're getting a lesson in plant anatomy, but these are such a spectacular flower. This type of columbine is really only in the Sierra Nevada. So it's actually kind of rare. You're not going to see it. I've got those need to be dry. Here's a big one. Okay. Just painting these in, trying to get the right colors. It's a little bit sloppy there. This one still needs to dry, and I need to lift up the Pebeo. There's some. I'm going to put some oranges in here, just a few here, streaks. Like that. And then I need to put my stem in. I can use my museum brush for that, pencil brush. I'm just making a little bit of light green. Light green is yellow and Antwerp. So I'm just going to be brave and just go for it here. See what happens. Not too bad. Well, it's actually coming together pretty well. One of the things that I wish was better was that it was darker and more distinct in this area. And that can be taken care of by just painting it darker behind here and then waiting long enough to remove that Pebeo so that it just all comes up really nice. I can also just kind of go back in and with the dark green and go around those, which takes longer. So that's what I'm going to do, but I don't think I need to do this on camera. So I'll just kind of show you what I mean. And then plus this needs to be lifted still, but I think it's even now too too wet. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and just really carefully go in around these a little darker. And then I'm going to show you something right now. So if I make that line there, I can rinse out my brush. And then this is a thirsty brush, and I'll just soften this edge out. So it's nice and dark right next to those, but then I don't have to paint dark all the way out to the edge. I just put in a little bit. I'll show you some more of that. Okay, so if I'm trying to this here. makes them pop out. Now right there, I want this edge to disappear. So I'm going to try some more right in here. That's on both sides of both those pistils. I'm going to make a little more. So I'm only using 2 colors, and so because I've done this for 30 years, I can make those colors pretty fast. But when you're first starting out, I think when you paint and then you've got to try to match your colors, it's kind of takes a few more minutes than that takes me. And then right in here, see how fine that little brush is, even though they're only $3 at the museum. I don't know. I feel like I want to kind of write the brush company because they're in Marin. And you have to buy 1,000, so I just go and it'd be nice to have 1,000 brushes with my name on it. Okay, now I'm in trouble because see those hard lines, and they're long. That's more than 2 inches, so I've got to try to soften this. Okay, so, okay, I was going to turn off the video, but now I'm just going to kind of keep going. So we would have fixed all this had we just painted nice and dark behind all of the pistils and stamens, and then waited till it was really dry. Okay. And just lifted it up. It would have been done just like that. Boom. And now I'm not liking that green, but that's okay. I'm going to leave it. Okay. There we go. Thanks for watching.